For 18 years, Jesus vanished from history. The Bible shows him at 12, debating scholars in the temple. Then suddenly, he's 30, walking out of the wilderness to begin his ministry. What happened in between? Where was he? What was he doing? That gap has haunted historians, skeptics, and believers for 2,000 years. And the theories? They get wild. Some say he traveled to India and studied under Buddhist monks. Others claim he went to Egypt and learned secret mysteries. There are stories of him in Britain, in Persia, even among the Druids. But here's what's interesting. The earliest Christians never seemed bothered by this silence. They wrote 4 Gospels, thousands of pages of letters, detailed accounts of his birth and his ministry, yet not one word about those 18 years. Why? Let's look at what we actually know. At 12, Jesus is in Jerusalem for Passover. His parents leave, thinking he's with relatives. 3 days later, they find him in the temple, listening to teachers and asking questions. Everyone's amazed at his understanding. Mary says, "Son, why have you done this to us?" And Jesus replies, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" Then he goes back to Nazareth, and the text says he was obedient to his parents, grew in wisdom and stature, and found favor with God and people. That's it. That's the last we hear until he's 30. So where do all these theories come from? In the late 1900s, a Russian journalist named Nicholas Notovich claimed he found ancient manuscripts in Tibet describing a man named Isa who traveled through India and studied Hindu and Buddhist teachings. Isa, he said, was Jesus. The story spread like wildfire. Books were written, documentaries were made, but scholars investigated. They visited the monastery Notovich mentioned. The manuscripts, they didn't exist. The monks had never heard of them. Notovich's story was fiction. Still, the idea stuck because we want to fill that gap. We want answers. There's another theory. Jesus was trained by the Essenes, a Jewish sect that lived in the desert near the Dead Sea. They practiced ritual washing, shared possessions, and believed they were preparing for God's kingdom. Sound familiar? Some scholars see echoes of Essene teaching in Jesus' ministry, but here's the problem. Jesus ate with sinners, he touched lepers, he welcomed tax collectors and prostitutes. The Essenes? They obsessed over purity, they avoided outsiders. They called themselves the sons of light, and everyone else sons of darkness. Jesus did the exact opposite. So probably not. What about Egypt? After all, Matthew's Gospel says Jesus' family fled there as a baby to escape Herod. Could they have stayed longer? Could he have learned from Egyptian sages? The text says they returned when Herod died. That was around 4 BC. Jesus would have been a toddler. And Egypt at that time was full of Jewish communities, not mystery schools. But here's the most likely explanation. And honestly, it's the most overlooked. Jesus was a carpenter. The Greek word is tekton. It means builder, craftsman, construction worker. In a small village like Nazareth, that's hard physical labor. You're building houses, fixing tools, making furniture, working with stone. It's not romantic, but it's real. Joseph was a tekton. Jesus learned the trade. For nearly 2 decades, he probably worked with his hands, supported his family, and lived an ordinary life in an ordinary town. Why doesn't this bother the gospel writers? Because in their world, this was normal. Most Jewish men didn't begin public teaching until they were 30. They learned a trade, they supported themselves, they studied scripture, they lived within their community. There's no mystery here, just daily faithfulness. And yet, we keep searching for something more dramatic. But let me ask you this, what if the silence isn't the point? What if the 18 years of carpentry, of family life, of small-town routine, what if that's not a gap to fill, but a statement to hear? Because when Jesus does step into public ministry, everything changes fast. 3 years, that's all he gets. 3 years of teaching, healing, confronting religious leaders, gathering disciples. 3 years before he's executed.
And in those 3 years, he says and does things that still shake the world. He tells stories that turn power upside down. He touches the untouchable. He forgives the unforgivable. He redefines what it means to be human. He claims God is his Father. He says he's the fulfillment of every promise Israel ever received. He says the kingdom of God isn't coming someday. It's here, now, breaking into the present. And then he lets himself be killed, and his followers say he rose from the dead. That's the story the Gospels care about. That's what they want you to wrestle with. Not 18 silent years, but 3 loud ones. And here's the twist. Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the reason the Bible doesn't tell us where Jesus was from 12 to 30 is because it doesn't matter for what God wanted to reveal. Maybe what we really need isn't more information about those years. Maybe we need to actually absorb what we already have. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most Christians haven't fully explored the richness of what Jesus said and did during his ministry. We've barely scratched the surface of the Sermon on the Mount. We've turned his parables into nice moral lessons instead of letting them explode our categories. We've domesticated the most radical figure in human history. We're obsessed with filling gaps while ignoring the treasury we've already been given. There's so much depth in the Gospels, so much that would transform our lives, our relationships, our societies, if we actually took it seriously. But instead, we want secret knowledge, hidden years, exotic travels. Maybe that's the real mystery. Not where Jesus was, but why we're so desperate to look anywhere except at what he actually said. Because if we really listened to the Sermon on the Mount, we'd have to forgive our enemies. If we really believed his words about the poor and the marginalized, our churches would look completely different. If we really trusted his promise that the kingdom is here, we'd stop waiting for escape and start living like it matters now. That's harder than a theory about India. So maybe the silence is an invitation, not to fill it with speculation, but to stop avoiding what's already been revealed. Jesus spent 18 years in obscurity, faithfully, quietly, working with his hands. And then he stepped into the light and changed everything. The question isn't where he was, it's whether we're ready to actually follow what he taught when he finally spoke.